Hi, Power Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a South Korean, emotional drama film called Flu. Please subscribe if you like this video. Let's begin. We see a cargo container at the beginning of the film. It is taken from Hong Kong to South Korea. When two people opened this container, they were quite shocked. Because not a single person was alive in the container, everyone was dead. Both of them have no idea how so many people have died. Meanwhile, one of them is a survivor who was still alive and begins to hold the feet of one of the two men. They severely beat him, and one of their friends requests to kill him. The second friend, on the other hand, wasn't ready to do this. They load the survivor onto their truck and drive him to the city, to help him. When they get to town, one of them gets out of the vehicle and goes to buy something. The survivor takes advantage of this and runs from that truck. When the owner of the truck returns after taking the items, he looks for the survivor, but he can't find him. He makes numerous attempts to find him, but he couldn't find the survivor. In the meantime, we observe the other person, his brother, whose health is declining. He goes to a medical store to get his medication for his treatment. After seeing him, it appears that he has been squeezed by any infection. People are progressively becoming infected with the virus. Later, we observe the scene of an accident, including a car that has crashed into a trench. A woman was trapped inside, and she was a doctor named Dr. Kim. A firefighter comes to save Dr. Kim named G.Gu. He saves her and brings her out. Meanwhile, G.Gu begins to develop feelings for Dr. Kim. Dr. Kim calls Jo.Gu the next day at the same place where the incident occurred. She informs G.Gu that my purse has been left upside down, and she requests that he bring it. How could G.Gu refuse Dr. Kim's order? He calls his other partner there. With his help, he travels downsides and he brings Dr. Kim's bag. When he returns with her bag, the phone inside begins to ring. This was the call of Dr. Kim's daughter. Kim wasn't there, so G.Gu decides that he'll give her bag to her daughter. One thing we do know is that Kim is married and has a daughter. Her husband, on the other hand, had left her a long time ago. Now she lived with her daughter. Her daughter's name was Miru. When G.Gu first meets Miru, she doesn't speak to him. Later, when she learns that he is reliable, she takes her mother's bag from him. G.Gu was returning to his car when we noticed a bus passing in front of him. A man inside coughing heavily, indicating that the illness was spreading. Kim's daughter, on the other hand, gives her mother's luggage to her when she gets home. She becomes happy as she watches this and inquires, "Where did you acquire this?" Meanwhile, she informs me that this was presented to me by an uncle, named G.Gu. Kim recognizes him as the same fighter and thanks him inside heart. Kim and her daughter were now having fun together. Meanwhile, Kim receives a call from the hospital that there is an emergency concerning a strange case, and that you should hurry to the hospital. Kim had to travel to the hospital to complete her obligation. She contacts her mother on the way and asks her to accompany her to Miru because she is alone. There was chaos everywhere when she saw the hospital scene. Meanwhile, we see the patient. He was no one else but at the beginning of the film, we notice two brothers, one of whom is him. The virus had an effect on him, and his condition had deteriorated. Her body has been adversely affected by red rashes, and a phone has been discovered from him. Doctors discover the container video on his phone when they check his phone, in which many people had died. Now, Kim, after coming out, asks his brother, "Where did you find this container and how did you record this?" He didn't respond to Kim and was furiously going to meet his brother. Everyone was stopping him. When he sees his brother, he becomes completely shocked. His brother has died. When he touches his brother, doctors forbid him. But seeing his brother in this state has completely broken him. He begins to touch everyone with those hands, but he is controlled by doctors. We see Miru later. She meets the same survivor who had escaped from the container. Miru gives him a meal, but the survivor warns her to stay away from him. But Miru kept repeating her name to the survivor. She was on her way to see the survivor when the survivor started coughing loudly. Miru feels worried and calls her G.Gu uncle and calls him there. When they reach there, their survival has gone from there. Later, we see a horrible scene where people were coughing badly. The strange virus begins to spread to everyone. Doctors and police together find the container. When they arrived at the container, they discovered a large number of bodies inside. They sanitized the area and eventually burned the container. So the infection could be contained here. But it had spread throughout South Korea. Meanwhile, Mi-ru is seen in a mall with her uncle Ji-gu. Ji-gu requests her mother's phone number so that he can safely deliver her to her mother. Meanwhile, Mi-ru appears to be sleepy during her lunch and falls asleep. Jo-gu takes her out after holding her. Meanwhile, he notices that the mall is completely chaotic. People were coughing and passing out all over the place. Meanwhile, Ji-gu notices a woman on the stairwell who later passes out. Meanwhile, Ji-gu returns to the lady to save her after leaving Mi-ru. The doctor's team, on the other hand, was watching the man's recording. In the meantime, the doctors see the survivor in the recording. The doctors show everyone a picture of the survivors. The virus, according to doctors, is extremely dangerous and lethal. H5N1 is the name of the virus. This virus can kill a person in as little as 24 or 36 hours. This virus first appeared in China. The chief of the hospital where Kim works calls the doctor and informs him of the virus. The doctors warn him that unless they stop the virus, it will spread throughout South and North Korea. The chief does not want the city to be sealed. Meanwhile, they see from the window a big explosion hit the petrol station. As a result, all of the vehicles began to clash with one another. People begin to faint after coming out of the vehicles. The government has made the decision to evacuate the entire city. They'll locate persons from her to afar. Everyone leaves, but Dr. Kim does not. Because her daughter was not with her and the only flight was still available. Meanwhile, she dials her daughter's number, which is answered by Ji-gu. He informs her of the mall's current state. He informs her that everyone is coughing and passing out. After listening to her, Kim arrives at the mall. When she travels to the mall, the government has put the place on lockdown. That's why anarchy overall and people were attacking the meal. It appears that the world is about to end. Here Ji-gu was finding Mi-ru. Initially, he was unable to find her, but after doing so, he is able to find her. Meanwhile, the military arrives and orders everyone to remain within the mall. No one was allowed to leave the area, and the shutter was closed. Everything would be sealed up to prevent the infection from spreading further. However, some people emerged through the shutter while running, including 3 of them as well. Dr. Kim informs Ji-gu that the last flight is still available and that you are welcome to join us. Ji-gu, on the other hand, refuses to leave because his job was to help people. That's why he calls his partner and begins removing the people who have become stuck in the shutter. Dr. Kim arrives at the airport with her daughter. They were only supposed to go after checking, and Mi-ru coughs in the meantime. The airport staff notices Mi-ru coughing. They are stopped by airport staff who inform them that they are not permitted to proceed any further. Meanwhile, Dr. Kim claims that she is merely suffering from a common cold and that he would soon recover. They are pushed out of the airport. The virus's name is H5N1 in this case. It first affected a bird, and it has now been transferred to humans. The city was put on lockdown, and everyone was supposed to be where he was. Through the media, the president interacts with everyone. That we are ashamed that we were unable to save the lives of so many people. Now we'll try to save the ones who have survived. Following that, everyone has a meeting with the mayor. He claims that after erecting a massive camp here, we must keep everyone. The doctors claim that if we do this, others who aren't affected will be affected as well. People who aren't affected by the virus will be in difficulties as well. Now, instead of listening to the doctor, people listen to the mayor. Because the government wields a different kind of power. The government announces that a deadly virus has spread across South Korea. As a result, we'll have to confine everyone to a camp. Military spreads around the country when this news is broadcast. Everyone was being moved out of their homes and into the camps. We watched the head of the World Health Organization and the president of South Korea conduct a meeting. Doctors advise the president that whatever he is doing is incorrect. As a result, everyone will be affected by the infection. The vice presidents, on the other hand, were not willing to listen to the doctors. "We don't seek your approval," the president says. "Doctors, simply explain how this infection can be prevented from spreading further." Doctors advise the president to do a PCR test. The report will be delivered within 48 hours. The people who'll be fine will be separated and they have to stay in the camp for 48 hours. Dr. Kim visits her daughter Miru, who is also infected, at this time. Dr. Kim doesn't tell anyone about this. Yi-Yo is also aware of this, and he advises that they separate her and her daughter. If you do not do so, other people will become infected as well. Kim, on the other hand, refuses to listen to him and declares, "I'll keep her isolated from others. Keep her mask on at all times." We view the city the next day in the morning. Everything has stopped there. When the military finds the survivor, they set up a separate camp for him. Meanwhile, the administration decides that no one will leave the government-created camp. If this occurs, the virus has the potential to spread to other countries. Miru's condition was also becoming worse because of this virus. She was becoming faint over and red rashes has emerged on her body. Dr. Kim tires a lot to save her daughter. She was praying to God again and again. But no vaccine has been made yet for this virus. Doctors were testing the survivor. Kim is approached by the doctors, who invite her to join their team because Dr. Kim was a specialist. Doctors discover that despite the virus, the survivor is well. He was unaffected by anything and had recovered from the infection. It indicates that a vaccine can be created from the survivor's blood. Later, the doctors there make a video call to their senior doctor. They ask him whether he wants to produce a serum from this survivor's blood. The doctor agrees, and they ultimately produce the serum, which gets a positive result. They've made the serum and are extremely pleased with themselves. However, injecting this serum takes a long time. Meanwhile, Dr. Kim is seen stealing a serum. Dr. Kim gives an injection to her daughter. Meanwhile, army soldiers arrive and rag it up on Dr. Kim. They question why you've kept her here, and she says it's because she'll infect the others. Dr. Kim has injected this serum into her daughter, as we know. However, she passed out. The army men who were seeing her pass out assumed she was dead. They took her from there, and Dr. Kim was being passed out as well. Ji-Gu emerges from the camp and begins searching for Dr. Kim and Miru. He is confronted with a horrific scene in front of him. All of the bodies were dumped in a ditch. As a result, everyone who has died might be burned. The virus's bodies may be destroyed. Meanwhile, Jo-Gu flees the scene and begins searching for Miru. But he doesn't find Miru anywhere and he calls her name loudly. Meanwhile, he sees the body of Miru and he hugs her. Later, he knows that she is still alive. Kim, on the other hand, wakes up and begins looking for her daughter. But she is unable to find her. We see an emotional scene there later. We witness a soldier find his mother, and he locates her mother. He learns that his mother has been affected as well. The soldier is aware that no vaccination against the virus has yet been developed. He hugs his mother, who was on the verge of passing away. Meanwhile, soldiers pull him from his mother and start beating him. The soldier's mother has asked that no one hit her son. There is no fault of him. On the other hand, we witness Ji-Gu fleeing after capturing Miru. Meanwhile, an army soldier spots him fleeing and begins firing at him. Meanwhile, a large number of people attack the soldiers and begin killing them. Dr. Kim tells her daughter that she has a walkie-talkie, and she starts sending messages through it. When Ji-Gu receives this message, he informs Kim that he is the father of her daughter. She is perfectly safe. After sitting him in a van, we saw that the survivor was moving somewhere else. Many people attacked their van, which included Dr. Kim. They drag the survivor out and start stabbing him with a knife. They believe that this man is responsible for the deaths of their people. Meanwhile, we see doctors rescuing him and moving on. Meanwhile, we saw the scene outdoors, where there were millions of people. The strange weapons are in everyone's hands. We now know that the survivor has also passed away. He was the only one who could make a blood vaccination. Meanwhile, the cars on the highway were present, and army personnel opened fire on them. They were murdering them, and when the president learns of it, he becomes agitated. He inquires of everyone who had placed an order for this. According to the vice president, "I ordered this because we need to save people's lives. If we don't act now, the entire Korean country will be destroyed." Dr. Kim makes a video call to President A to inform him that my daughter Miru has recovered. The blood vaccination could be produced by her blood. President agrees with Kim, and orders to bring out her daughter from quarantine. There, the President of the United States and the people of WHO do not agree with the orders of the President. They cancel their orders and say if anyone comes out from quarantine, we'll throw a missile on them, kill them. Nobody was paying attention to the President. Miru afterward appears in front of a large crowd. Kim sees her, and both begin to run to meet each other. When the army soldiers start firing, a bullet hits on Kim's arm. G.Gu also arrives and holds Kim. Meanwhile, Miru approaches her mother and stands in front of her. "Please don't shoot my mother." She continues to say, "Don't hit a bullet, my mother." It was quite an emotional scene. Everyone notices a girl who is trying to save everyone. They all come up to her and stand in front of her. When the president saw what was going on, he canceled all of the orders. Because now, the army was under his control nor in America's control. Meanwhile, it was reported that serum will be made soon. We'll make sure you have everything you need. Listening to this makes everyone happy. Later, we observe Miru being transported in an ambulance by the doctors. As a result, serum might be created from her blood. Ji-gu assures Miru that if she helps sick people, God will help her. She later leaves, and after a few days everything is back to normal. In the final scene, we see Kim Jo with her daughter, and Ji-hu in business. The film ends here.